Greetings. Sai Ram, Vanakkam, Namaskar, Vandanam, Assalamu Alaikum, and Shat Shri Akal. Very nice to see all of you again. Today, we're looking at something called empathy. Empathy. So what's the real meaning of empathy? You know, researchers who've done research into this, they generally define empathy as an ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling, right? A kind of sensibility of the moment, if you like. Now, notice a connection, right? Last week, we looked at sensibility. This week, we're looking at empathy, right? So I'm trying to draw the dots, connect the dots so that you can see a flow in the theme that we are looking at the different expressions for the month. So we started last week, month of May, by looking at our Thursday reflection series, by looking at sensibility. Today, we're going on to empathy. So I said to you, empathy is a kind of sensibility of the moment. Now, if you ask me, I would like to call it as something cognitive, you know, a cognitive empathy, or looking at something from a specific perspective, right? A kind of perspective taking, if you like. So it refers to, very basically, it refers to our ability to identify and understand other people's emotions. It refers to our ability to identify and understand other people's emotions. It's an affinity, if you like, a sense of appreciation. I did compassion with you. So sometimes, excuse me, empathy can be equated to compassion, insight, a rapport, a concord, if you like, a kind of responsiveness, you know, where you can relate to the unfelt and the unseen. This is quite nice, where you can relate to the unfelt and the unseen. It's not if you want the opposite, it's not disdain, it's not showing indifference, mercilessness. You know, that's the opposite of empathy. Discord, you know, concord, discord, disunity, apathy. You know, all this can tell you that you are not empathetic, right? So you need to, you know, contrast sympathy with empathy, right? Because not many people understand and appreciate the difference. So we're looking at empathy, not sympathy, because many people think being, you know, showing empathy is showing sympathy. No, it's not the same, right? It's very different. So let me tell you, you know, a very, very touching story, right? So this Marine, you know, he rushed to the hospital because he got a call saying that his father is quite serious, you know. So he came to the hospital and he was waiting outside the ward when the nurse came and held the Marine's hand and straight away took him to the bedside of an elderly gentleman who's lying, but he was having his eyes closed. So she said to him, "Your son is here. Your son is here. He has come to see you." And, you know, she said it several times. Then slowly the man's eyes opened, slowly. He was heavily sedated, right? Because of his heart problems and all of that. He could see, you know, a blurry look of a young uniformed Marine standing beside the bed, you know, waiting. He slowly, you know, picked up enough strength to reach out to this young Marine. And the Marine wrapped his hands around the old man's limp ones, you know, the fingers, squeezing a message of love and encouragement, you know, or you gently hold somebody's hand and you squeeze that warm feeling of love. So the nurse brought a chair so that the Marine could sit by the side of the man on the bed. And of course, all through the night, you know, the young Marine sat there poorly, looking at the poorly man, listening to what he says, and then, of course, holding his hands constantly and you know, talking to him. Occasionally, the nurse will suggest that maybe the Marine should, take a walk or stand up and, have some sort of, a break, a 5-minute break or something. But, the Marines are very hardcore, very well trained. So he just sat there throughout, holding the man's hands and talking to him. And, until the early morning of the hours when the man, still holding the Marine's hand, passed away sadly. Now, he called on to the nurse. The nurse came. She started doing what she's supposed to do, and she told him to wait there. And then after taking care of the body, she came back and she started to offer the Marine some gentle words of solace, comforting him. But before she could continue, before she could continue, the Marine stopped her and he said, "I'm sorry, nurse, but who was that man?" The nurse got shocked. She said, "He's your father. He's your father." Man said, "No, he's not my father." Then the nurse was surprised and she said, "Well, why didn't you say something when I took you to him? You didn't say anything. You should have said something, that obviously there's been a mistake here." Then the Marine said, "Actually, I knew he was not my father the moment I saw him. At that same time, I also realized that there's been a mistake. But for me to leave this place and go to the right hospital looking for my father would have been something selfish, right? The moment where I was placed as I was, I thought, let me do something for this man. And hopefully someone somewhere will be helping my father. I felt that this man needed his son. So I sat here and became his son so that he could die peacefully. And in that same moment, I was praying that my father also leaves peacefully." I mean, what a fantastic service this guy has done. I mean, that is empathy, I said to you, feeling or relating to the unfelt and the unseen. Superb. I mean, no one, in this selfish world would go to the extent of what this young man did. And that, my dear friends, that is an example of empathy. Empathy is, like I said to you earlier, right? Seeing with the eyes of another, hearing with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. You know why? Because when you start to develop your powers of empathy, the skills, their powers, when you start to develop your powers of empathy, the entire world begins to open up. It's like your Sahasrara chakras is opening up, petal by petal by petal. That is the power of empathy. Empathy has no script. There is no right way or wrong way to do things. It is simply listening, holding the space, withholding judgment emotionally, connecting, communicating in a way that incredibly heals the other person. Because the message you're trying to tell the other person is, you're not alone. There is no such thing as a small act of kindness. Every act creates a ripple with no logical end. Until I see you next Thursday, stay blessed.